This is an interview with Florine LeBall to add to the movie that we just did. So when were you born, Florine?
I was born in Germany in 1937 and lost my parents when I was 7 years old through bombs in the Second World War, and had lost my name and I was born Rolf Goll, and was adopted several years later by an Alsatian couple under the name of Abel. They gave me their name, so I became Rolf Abel.
How old are you?
Now I'm 77.
And when you started dancing, how young did you?
I was 9.
What was the episode like?
The episode was that my adopted parents, my adopted mother was very cultured and very artistic oriented, and took me to a performance after the Second World War, which was called Huschewins Weihnachten. And Germany, Frankfurt, where I was born, was completely flat. There was no streets and nothing anymore left. But in Germany, always theater always went on, even in the war. And here she took me to an opera house, small theater, totally bombarded. And I saw my first performance called Huschewins Weihnachten. And suddenly a Dutch windmill was pushed on the stage, and it opened up, and here came out a ballerina and with her partner and dancers, and I immediately knew that's what I wanted to do. And told my adopted mother later that I would like to do that I'd like to become a dancer. But I was still too young. And so when the auditions, when I was 9 years old, the auditions came along for the state opera, which was completely bombarded. On the state, when I had to go to Sophienschule in Bockenheim.
State Opera House?
Yeah. Then I had to go to the Sophienschule. All opera houses were bombarded. They had to were holding the auditions in a middle school, which was totally smashed, but we walked up there. I was 7, and they put me, my adopted mother took me into a room where I had to wait with so many children. The auditions take between 3 and 4 days. They're coming from everywhere, and they take only 10.
When you say smashed, what do you mean?
Smashed bombards. There was nothing left anymore.
Explain.
Bombards, the Americans and the English. Germany was bombarded up to 12 and 42 hours non-stop, forever and ever. You could never sleep. My real mom never took my clothes off. I slept only with shoes and totally closed. And my father, when the moment the alarm went off, they grabbed me and put me into the cellar. That's when, in March 43, that's when my parents died. We went out to the cellar, and I hardly remember anything. I remember only there was a huge explosion, lights off, and I was unconscious and was totally under the rubble of the houses. It took 2 days to dug us out, and I felt something very heavy on me. It was a gentleman. He lived in the same building as my parents, the apartment building. His name was Herr Bader. He was in his 80s in that time, and he was lying on top of me. So when they dug us out, that's when I knew it was Herr Bader, and it came out that I was 2 days under the rubble, completely buried. It was tremendous heat. They took me out, and later on I tried to identify my parents. I could not identify my parents. I knew my mother, I recognized on a ring, because when you burn like they did, you shrink completely into, like a little bit bigger than a baby. That's all you are. There's no juice, nothing anymore. You shrink completely. And I was taken immediately by the Nazis and put into a orphan house in Anderhambach, which was called Lebenshaus, where I was for over 1 year. And they gave us hardly anything to eat because there was nothing to eat. And I lived in filth. The village was probably 10 houses and nothing else. And cows running around, things like that. And I met an older lady in her home, and she always fed me. And just one day, over a year later, friends of my parents, Frau Abel and Herr Abel, found me and tried to take me out, which took quite a long time. And they got me out, and the adoption took over 4 years before they even could adopt me. But that's the way it was, and then I went into the auditions for the ballet school, and was accepted from 10. They took only 10, I was one of the 10.
What was the audition like?
The audition was had no idea about ballet, anything. They took you on one by one. There were about 5, 6 people sitting. I remember their names. The main was Herbert Freund, which was the director of the opera house. No, the director was, Buchwitz was the director of the whole opera house, which was totally destroyed. And the ballet director, and Ossie Helken, which were the main stars of the school, they picked you. And when my name came, I went in, they took my little pants off, had only my underwear on, barefoot, and checked my body out as well. I had a high arch, good legs, long neck, and they bent me, they took my leg, they lifted up, and then they pushed it aside good, and I said, oh, I can hold it. And I was holding it up there, because I had extremely high extension as always. So I was immediately accepted. And first I slept at home until 12, and then from then on I slept in the boarding house, which just slowly built up again. It took 10 years I was in that school.
You took classes and learned ballet?
Yeah, classes. I took anything. I had to take ballet, modern, and character dancing for the classics, because in the classical ballet always character dancing. All that. And modern, which I never liked.
So where did you learn the classics from?
Pardon?
Where did you learn the classics from? Swan Lake, Firebird?
The tradition, that's typical Germany. You learn original choreography from the age of 13.
So you learned all of them?
Yeah.
Who was your teacher?
Teacher, Ossi Klöckner. At 15, I went the first time to Paris. It was the first ballet competition in Germany, in Frankfurt. The best, and I won.
Came in first place?
Yeah, I came in first.
Out of how many?
It was 1952. There was no competition like that. It was held in the Palmen Garden in Frankfurt am Main. This was the most beautiful botanic garden. They had a stage, and that's where I danced. And I forgot even the name of the girl which I was dancing with. And I had a tremendous applause, and I won. I went to
That's
Paris.
great.
Since my adopted parents spoke both French, they were Alsatians, so I knew already French. And my first classes were in Paris, at Studio Vacker in Paris, with Madame Rosin.
What was that like?
Pardon?
What was that like?
It was a nightmare. I thought I was already so good. When she was she had a voice like that. She smoked non-stop. She was tiny, white powdered face, and her lipstick was so red and smeared that it looked like she put it in the marmalade. But she was a fantastic teacher, and I was horrified of her. And she had really interested in me, and right away, and yelled at me from all the time. Every time I come to class, she yelled at me. That's where I saw the great stars, which supposed to be were great stars. Kalushny, Algarov, Edive Bagava, Irene Skowick, people like that. And try to learn something from them, which was not that advisable, because they were already going down.
What were your classes like? Like when
My
you say,
classes, Madame Rosin, were fantastic.
when you say Roseanne Barr, was that,
Roseanne Barr, Corpiers, and 8 petit battements tendus in each direction, in plié, in jeté. Rond de jambe à terre, frappe pace. She had a tremendous rond de jambe à terre. You had to stay out and kick and stay. 8, 7, hold it, hold it. It's very strict, very correct. Even if she didn't correct you, you just listen to the corrections of which she told somebody else, and you could learn a lot. That's what I did. But she always gave me correction.
so did you learn soleil turns and grand pirouettes?
Yeah, and that's right. I learned soleil turns, grand pirouette. First soleils, then grand pirouettes.
How many grand pirouettes did you do?
Pardon?
After a while, how
Later
many?
on, when I was 18, I turned 125 grand pirouettes. Like
That's
nothing.
amazing.
Yeah, I started immediately. I had to go back to Germany. After 6 months, I had to go back to Germany, because you have to go always back to the school where you come from. It's I had to go back there, and until 18, and I graduated.
Who was the celebrity in ballerina in the class?
One,
Who was the best ballerina in the class?
there was one who was fantastic, but she never worked. I don't know why. Her name was Joan Ketzo in Paris, and she was Australian. She was physically gorgeous, and she had a tremendous technique. She danced later. Later on, I saw her again a few years later in Stuttgart as prima ballerina. But in Paris, she worked very, very seldom. She studied. And I think Madame Rosan taught her without any charging for the lessons. She was tremendous and physically extremely beautiful.
And what about the males?
The males, there was one. I worked with him later, Peter van Dyck. I worked with him later in Hamburg. Peter van Dyck, he was stunning, but he was Dutch. And he was the big star of the Paris Opera. And he was absolutely gorgeous. He really was gorgeous.
What performances did he do?
Peter van Dyck?
Yeah.
Oh, he did all the classics. He was a complete classical dancer. He was one of the few who ever got into the Paris Opera because he was not a Parisian. But he was so good. He danced with Janine Charras when the horrible accident with fire died. But he was really fantastic. He became the partner, before he came to Paris, he partnered Maria Fries, a tremendous, beautiful, tiny, tiny little person, but such an artist. Such an artist. He danced with her before he came to Paris.
Who was your favorite ballerina?
Maria Fries.
She was your favorite?
Yeah, ever, including Victor Ksovsky's. Because later on, when I graduated right away as a principal dancer and danced Firebird, which was very successful, under Nika Linanova. And my partner was Natasha Trofimova. In that time, the Russian prima ballerina, Natasha Trofimova, was called from the Munich State Opera to dance with me, when she did. Unfortunately, the choreography Nika Linanova did in the Firebird had to be changed for her because she was older, but she had a tremendous name, Natasha Trofimova, and so it was good for me right away with 18 to dance with her because she was fine in her 30s, late 30s already. They never changed my choreography, step of the culture of the choreography, but they changed her choreography.
How old were you when you did Firebird?
18.
18 years
Yeah,
old.
yeah, I was 18.
How long is the
18, I danced Firebird for one whole year, and Van Eyck, Nika Nila created for me the ballet right before in Firebird was up. Revanche. It's a game, a chess game, with the red king, the red horse, the black horse, and so on, which I had tremendous success. Horst Köckler, the critic of Germany at that time, wrote me tremendous critics.
What was your next piece?
That was that. And then I met Marcel Louis Prat, who was the most best choreographer for me I could ever have. He created a ballet for me, Stoffreste, which was my favorite. Dress designer, crazy, who gets crazy and kills himself in the end. And Günter Grass, the famous writer, wrote that ballet for me. That was a tremendous success.
And how old were you then?
Yeah, I was 20
Amazing.
years old. Yeah, I worked with Marcel Leprat for quite a few years.
So what was the history from that piece on?
From that piece on, I went then to Paris, and had Victor Ksovsky. Madame Rosan died. She was not alive anymore. She was dead. With Victor Ksovsky, and Victor Ksovsky was the ultimate of a teacher and artist. His classes were not only plain technique, they were completely artistic. And I had classes with him for 3 years, non-stop. Sometimes I took 2 classes, sometimes I took 1 class in the morning. He had a class at 11 and then at 12:30 again. 2 classes he taught a day.
So when did your career get to the point where you were getting paid?
Oh, I got paid from the age of 18.
From the age of
Totally
18?
independent by the age of 18. Totally.
And what carried on from then?
From that it carried on. Then I went to Paris. Sometimes had difficulty with the choreographer and things like that. So I quit my job and auditioned Michel Gamatti, the big Gamatti, known over all Paris, saw me dance and offered me a contract for the Folie Bergère as a classical dancer.
How long did you stay with them?
2 years. The revue was called Folie Chérie, and he gave me 2 tremendous pas de deux, one La Neige and one La Piscine. And I never experienced the luxury in any ballet company which he provided.
The settings?
The settings were so unbelievable. It was 1960. The settings were so unbelievable. And every star had his own tableau, which means you had your own, you had the stage. And La Neige, we had the prima ballerina, white tutus, costumes, colettes, stones, and everything. And the pas de deux was tremendously choreographed. And then, in the middle of the pas de deux, it started snowing, and then you walked back into off the stage, and a statue came out, a transformation. It was absolutely beautiful. And the only thing was, we danced it every night, the same thing on Saturdays. On Sundays, we danced it twice. But it was great, and they paid me a fantastic salary, and I could afford anything I had to do to promote my career.
So how long did you stay with Folie Bergère?
2 years. 2 years.
What did you do from there?
From there, I met George Balanchine, and he wanted me to come over. And I came over, but I didn't like it at all.
Why?
No, he wasn't. The classes, I went to his school, and the classes there, they were not for me. For Balanchine, you have to be a different dancer.
Is it true?
You have to have no mind of your own. And I didn't like his whole schooling.
Is it true that Nureyev wouldn't come into class if you were there?
Yeah, never came to class when I was in class.
How many times that happened?
Oh, 17. He wanted until he left for England.
Why was that?
Sounds egotistical, but you know, my belief in Nureyev is that Nureyev made his tremendous career. I was in Paris in that time when the Kirov was there. Nureyev danced for a whole month and nobody cared. Nobody cared. And then he screamed Liberty, and suddenly he was the greatest dancer in the world. Is that right? And became Marquis de Cuevas company hired him immediately. There were so many unbelievable dancers in my time in Paris. Oh God, Olikovsky, he turned 15 pirouettes. And you really look for a technique. I saw that myself, turned 15 pirouettes. There was many dancers. But it was new, and Balanchine, Nureyev screamed Liberty, so that helped him, of course. You know.
And Baryshnikov?
Baryshnikov was a phenomenal technician, yes, he was. He really was. Yeah.
Did he take classes with you at
No,
those times?
no.
So he studied in Russia.
He came from Russia, and then somehow he went to Canada, and from Canada, American Ballet Theater. No.
What is your favorite pas de deux?
My favorite pas de deux, my favorite pas de deux, I think my favorite pas de deux was the Firebird pas de deux.
So it's an intense piece.
Yeah, the Firebird, but the music alone was so tremendous.
How about Sakura?
That I danced on very often. Le Sacre, that's because I was the type for that. I was not the tall, lyrical type. So I was never really interested in roles like this. I was more dramatic. I went for Milos choreographed ballets for me. I danced one time in England with Peter Wright. Marcel Lupin was for me the best choreographer. He knew me. Absolutely knew me. I worked in the Köln State Opera in 58 or 59, and he choreographed so many ballets for me there. He was.
So where did you dance in Russia?
Pardon?
Did you dance in Russia?
In 1959.
Where did you dance?
First time, and I didn't like that at all. In that time, the KGB was there, and you couldn't go nowhere. They watched you from morning till night.
Bolshoi?
Yeah, they watched you all the time.
What did you dance at the Bolshoi?
I danced Revanche. But you could go nowhere. You were in the hotel room. We were picked up to the opera.
How were the Russian critics? What did
Excellent.
Do you have to say
Yeah,
anything?
absolutely excellent, yeah.
Since you're American.
I always great reviews.
Or French.
America had great reviews. My first appearance in America, the biggest thing, first in New York, and then I went from there. Mrs. Pimsler, she was an agent, she saw me and asked me if she could handle me, and brought me to Florida. They were looking in Florida for Dr. Coppelius, and that's where I danced Dr. Coppelius for 2 months in Florida under Ted and Joanna Nealon. And but I had a bad episode there too.
What way?
Markova, Alicia Markova, old prima ballerina before Fontaine, was very close to them and wrote a book. And she wanted me to sign the book, that everything technically I can do, I learned from her new method. Since I refused with that method, I couldn't possibly say, because that was a method was, in my opinion, insane.
Would have been a lie.
Yeah, of course it would be a lie. And since I refused to sign the method, 3 days later they wanted to deport me.
Really?
That's the God's honest
What
truth.
about Petipa?
They said I had no Petipa. Petipa was my favorite choreographer, but he's old. He created all the classics for a long time ago. You know.
So every step that you do is from Petipa.
And he's the class, like Victor Ksovsky, Brozan classes, which I had. Everything I learned, my technique, you know, for corporate you don't have to practice corporate. I never forget that. You sit on the wall, straight on the wall, you lift your leg up and you hold the leg for 30 or 40 counts. That will give you 32 corporates. This is the kind of method. It was completely wacko and insane.
Amazing.
But she didn't get by with it. But I did not go back. I was supposed to go back there, and I did not go back. David Lichine brought me then to Los Angeles.
So this is your American experience.
Yeah, that was Florida. David Lichine saw me in Dr. Coppelius in Florida in Palm Beach in the Frank Hale Playhouse, and immediately signed me up for his ballet company in Los Angeles, where I had a great relationship with David Lichine. He was a very beautiful man. When I danced and performed with him, and his company had a company. And I stayed there until 1969. Yeah, I stayed until 69. And I taught classes in Beverly Hills. I had a school classes for him, and rehearsal and dance for him.
Just a little piece about the beginning tape with Kniazev. As you
Kniazev, I had Kniazev.
Just a small.
But he was, Kniazev was.
Was that his name?
Boris Kniazev, yeah. He was a fabulous man, big, brutal, big. He invented stretching, and you went to him after ballet class. He went to him and took stretch classes from him, and I did that. And he was tremendous.
Helped your ballet?
I'd help the ballet, I mean, the extension, turn on. Everything was done on the floor. Everything on the floor. Doesn't exist anymore today. All these teachers I had don't exist anymore.
So basically it's just natural talent they have today.
Yeah. You could not go to him if you were stiff. But he didn't want you. He picked you. He didn't want you. There was one, she was tremendous. We showed several things together in Krefeld, in Germany, when we toured with him. Jossi was her name. She was stunning. She had a weight problem. So when she wanted to be thin, she was thin. When she wanted to be happy, she was happy. But when she performed Jossi, she was like dislocated. And that's what he liked and showed you up. But he had his stretching ideas. He did a complete bar on the floor on stretching and splits and extension, all this kind of stuff, which I still do today.
And you learned that where? Where was he from?
In Paris.
Paris.
Mm-hmm. In Paris. And Paris was for me a tremendous experience. I did not appreciate it because when you're young, you don't appreciate anything. And now I think back and had great. I learned tremendous. What I really learned from my whole technique, the big technique, came all from France, from them, from Rosanne Ksovsky and Kniazev. When Ksovsky wasn't there, he replaced his classes with Lobov. Lobov was another Russian, younger, which I enjoyed too. So I was very lucky. It's
been a long road.
Yeah, very lucky. And I never gave up training. Never, never, never.
You've been training for how long now?
Now, I started with 9. I'm now 77 going.
And every day you train? Every day?
I still work out every morning. I had 2 hip replacements, and I thought I could never do. And the last hip replacement was a complete disaster because he made my leg shorter 2 inches. That's why my leg came. And it took me years to get that, what I can do now again. So I do Kniazev. I start out with Kniazev, 45 minutes Kniazev, and then I do Rozan bar, Oksovsky bar, and some center steps on the bar.
Well, on this video, we're going to show some pictures of you with your développé and stage.
There were quite a few ballerinas who used to dance with me because my extension was much too high.
Well, we're going to show some of them later on.
Carmen Panadere, for instance.
This interview is going to end now, and we'll continue again in part 2. Thank you very much. It was very interesting so far.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Thank you.